So, welcome. Hello. This is Christian McNeil, and I'm really delighted to be in conversation with Fredrik Kinnman tonight. He is in Malmo, am I right? In
Very close to Malmö, in
very
Lund.
close.
Yeah,
Lund in Sweden, and
Lund.
Fredrik is a psychiatrist there. And we just met recently because we're both going to be working together, co-facilitating along with a group of other people at a retreat next year in Spain. So I'm going to, I know very little about you beyond that, Fredrik, so I'm just going to hand it over to you to introduce yourself and to tell us a bit about yourself. And so over to you.
All right. Yeah, I'm happy to be here.
Good.
Yeah, I live in Sweden, in the south. I'm a psychiatrist. We just talked about that. I just turned I just became a psychiatrist, and it feels very strange to sit here and say that. But with the three principles, my journey started when I lived in Stockholm for like 7 years ago, and I felt very depressed, very anxious, and I couldn't cope with medicine studies, and so I just wanted some relief from my pain, basically. So I browsed the internet for all kinds of stuff, like EFT, like CBT, and all kinds of different. Tony Robbins, I was into as well. And then I found Jamie Smart's homepage, and I felt it was something there, and I started like listening to his tapes, and I found also Michael Neal, and I really enjoyed listening to that. And I felt it was something there. So I just continued and listened to the same tapes for like 10, 20 times. I don't know if I had any insights, but it felt really good. And so I guess I had. But the real like turning point, I think, was I wrote to Jenny and Rudy on the Three Principles Movies site. And I got a beautiful reply from them, and they had suggestions what to do. Like it was going to the big conference in London, and it was go to Space for Connection, and it was something else. And I just checked out their list and did that.
Oh, that's so interesting. We must have been in the same places, because I was at all of those early conferences and at one of the Space for Connections in.
Yeah, I know they had a couple, like 4 or 5. I think I was at the 3 of them, I think. So it was and that like meeting these people was such a lovely thing, because then I started like my psychiatry like specialization. And it was so interesting for me to observe the differences in like mental health with my colleagues compared to the people I met at the Space for Connection, for example.
Yeah.
It was so lovely to meet all you people there.
All the people who've joined us for the call tonight.
Yeah, but it was, and at the first Space for Connection, I met Sheila Masand, and she told me about she was bringing Jack Pransky to Spain, and Jack Pransky was a bit of my hero because I read the book Somebody Should Have Told Us.
Yeah.
And I really loved that book. So that started like a Spain thing for me, Spain crush. I've been there for like 9 or 10 times, I think, visiting what Sheila Masand has done, different events, and often with Jack Pransky. So I really enjoy that, and the feeling around there is so beautiful.
Oh, lovely.
Yeah.
So all through this point, you were on the one hand qualifying as a psychiatrist, and then and on the other hand learning and going deeper with the three principles, and were they kind of taking you in different directions, or
Yeah, definitely. It was very interesting to have doing these two paths at the same time because I struggled a lot, like having to do all kinds of like courses. I found like psychopharmacy and like diagnosis, and sometimes I think it was harder to learn because sometimes it felt this is pointing in the wrong direction, but I needed to learn it. So
is it something you discussed with the the people teaching you? Did you bring any of that into the mainstream learning, or?
In the beginning, I was very like, when I was like new to the three principles, I was, I need to tell them. But I realized I stopped doing that because it felt like walking into a wall. Like, and it's so often the case, like the expression, like the problem is not the not knowing, it's the illusion of knowledge. And we have so much illusion of knowledge that like hinders new stuff coming in. And in psychiatry we have so much knowledge.
Well, that's fascinating. Yeah. I've sometimes I had a background in law and mainly working with people with problems for many years, but it sort of struck me that after I came into the principles that it was as though there was a sort of, if you could imagine, a kind of donut of professionals, so-called helping professionals, who were well motivated and were devoted to trying to help the people in the middle, who were the people with problems. But what they couldn't see was that invisibly they were kind of keeping those people stuck because they were peddling things that don't really work, and very invested in continuing to do things that didn't really seem to work, and nobody really seemed to notice that. And
it's so true, like, because like in psychiatry we're really selling a story about them being damaged all the time, like you have this chronic illness, you have this, and you go to us and we know it's chronic, and that's so not true, like so that's really working against us, it feels like. And it's of course very innocently we do what we think is best, and we do lots of great stuff, but it's so interesting to see, for example, we have a mobile team, we call it, that go home to people in psychiatry. We just started that, and it seems like it's so people really like that, when people come to their home, and it seems like so little effort there can make so much difference, because then it's like in a healthier environment. And when we are in the psychiatric ward, we need to like struggle and put so much effort in, and it's so little reward, it feels like, for the patient.
It's so interesting how tiny, or maybe not so tiny, but tiny shifts make that difference. And I guess in the home environment there isn't such a sense of hierarchy, of the psychiatrist up here, the patient down there, but because they're the householder, there's more of an equality, and also that thing you said of diagnosing people as broken, and that was one of my big insights. And although I had a very functional life, because I had a history of alcoholism in my past, I saw myself as someone who had this flaw, this brokenness that had to be tended to all the time. And somebody just saying, well, nobody's broken, you're not broken, nobody's broken. The truth of that really hit me, and it shifted everything. It just shifted everything. And it's just funny how that changing that sense about yourself, seeing the truth that you know, that's at essence, I was never broken. Nobody is broken. Each of us retains that that wholeness, that connectedness. That's such a powerful thing to know, to be able to realize.
Wow, that's lovely. Yeah, it's so powerful when we wake up to that. It's just a story.
Yeah.
And we hold on to these stories until we don't.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it seems like when we are in a place of love, like it seems that it helps so much for people waking up and yourself waking up to your stories. It's the right path is paved with love.
Yeah.
And when I look at psychiatry, it's sometimes it's so sad because it's so far from love. It seems to me like, of course, it's not the case in a lot of places in psychiatry, but to me, it seems like a pretty hard and clinical world. And with all of this diagnosis and all these titles, and you meet someone with a white clothes and like know all this stuff, and the love is not so present there.
Yeah.
And that's a shame. But we need to bring this into psychiatry.
So how are you dealing with now that you're working in a hospital? I know because from our conversations before this, and now and you have this role. How are you merging the two, or how are you resolving the conflict for yourself?
It's a good question. It helps for me. Like I have a smaller ward it seems like a bit outside all the bigger wards where people come in and out, and it's like very high pace. And we have a little lower pace, and that's great, I think. So we have a little bit longer time to talk to patients, and they are there for a little longer. So that helps definitely. And for myself, it's very I go in and out, of course. Like sometimes,
as we all do.
Yeah, and sometimes I lose myself so much, and I think, what am I doing here? But sometimes I feel I'm at the right place, and it's really needed. Of course, it's so needed, but it would be so lovely to have like people with this knowledge, more people, like all the staff, like a hospital with this or something. We don't need to call it hospital. We just have people helping people.
And maybe you're the start of that.
Yeah.
First of many.
Yeah. But if we take, like, for example, ordinary talk with a patient, it's like sometimes of course like when I'm like grounded in myself, of course I always listen to what comes up, and some of the times it's just talking about medication, because it seems like I lose them when I don't. And sometimes it like comes up, have you realized we just talk about this? Or what do you think about this? Like, it's like in different dosages, does it really make a difference? Talk about the talk we had before, like in the discussion. And I usually talk about like the role of medication. Like for example, there are two components of a medication. There's a direct component, the transmitters, and there's an indirect. That's all your thinking around what this does to you. And usually this is a bigger component.
Yeah.
To explore that a bit with the patient, because there can be so much fear around medication, and that doesn't help so much at all. And it's really important to listen to that, because that really affects the outcome.
And is there a place to introduce, I suppose, more explicitly and anything to do with the three principles in your day job, as it were, or is that something that is just not open to you at this point in time?
Unfortunately, I think it's my insecurities around it. I have a lot of stories that I couldn't mention it, so I haven't. But I think it would clash too much with how the other work. I work with other colleagues and stuff. But who knows? Next week, I might do that. But I haven't done it explicitly at all up till this point.
Yeah.
Except talking with some of my colleagues about it. Then I've talked about the three principles. But I haven't talked to patients explicitly.
And what kind of are any of your colleagues interested? Are any of them intrigued? Or
it seems like the younger are more open to it than the senior psychiatrist. To me, it seems like.
Yeah, interesting.
But we're so trained in analytical thinking as a doctor, so it's so easy to trigger our intellect. It feels like to me. And then you're going in the wrong direction.
Yes, interesting.
Yeah, and I realized I have so much thinking around the three principles, what they are. Before, I hated that question because it really triggers my intellect, because I really want to define them in a good way, and then you're really lost.
Yeah.
Because that's not what it's about, to define them.
Yes, yeah. I must say that's one of the things I found that I do less and less. That I just unless somebody specifically asks me, it's I don't really go there, and whatever work I'm doing, whether it's one-to-one or a sort of group situation, I tend to find the sort of the common interest, or where and to talk in a much more general way, although it's always coming from that place, but I don't tend to use those terms very often, and increasingly less and less. Find other ways of expressing the bits that in the language that I know will kind of resonate with the group, I think. Yeah. I'm noticing that we've got quite a few people on the call, and I'm wondering, if anyone would like to ask Fredrik anything, or just sort of have any comments on anything that's we've discussed so far. Good to see you, Viv. Because it would be lovely to hear from you too.
Yeah. Questions, please.
Fiona McGuire has raised her hand. Please come in. Shall I unmute you, Fiona? I've unmuted you.
Hi.
Hi.
A bit more of a mess than I realised I did, but it's because I've just had a shower. So I'm not going to stay on the call for long, because I have a client. So I'm really appreciative to ask you this question. I was just wondering if you believe that there is a medical condition, or I'm a trained psychologist, so that might help with the question. If you believe that there is a medical condition where you have to give the client medication to stabilize them, or do you believe that an understanding of the three principles is enough to stabilize them?
Great question. I really think it's a great help. For example, if someone hasn't slept for 5 days, we all become psychotic. And I'm really for like hit them hard to just get them to sleep, because that's a natural thing. And sleep is like antidepressant, antipsychotic, anti-anxiety. I prescribe a lot of sleeping pills to get to people to sleep, but that's one thing. But if we take, I think like medication, I've seen people really being helped by medication as well. For some people, like suffering, some people are really suffering from bipolar, like manic episodes and depression, and it seems like lithium has really helped them. And taking a pill each day in the morning, I'm not sure that's the only way, but it seemed like it was really helpful for them. And then they have more capacity to experience, like to talk about this, and like, for example, and they can be more present, and it helps them.
So if I can ask another question, what is it that you heard or seen in the three principles that really got you to believe in it?
The first thing was definitely not hearing anything myself. It was just like meeting people in this community and like compare it with people in psychiatry, for example, like the staff there, and really like it is something here. But for me, my first insight was really, I was like walking in a grocery store, and I saw, and then I've heard like Michael Neal and Jamie Smart discuss a lot in the car just before, and I don't know exactly what I heard, but when I was in this grocery store and I saw the tomatoes, I was like these tomatoes doesn't care what we call them. Like, this is not tomatoes. It's so made up. And like I realized how like we use all these words, but they're just made up. The word is not the thing. So we have all these labels, and it's not the real thing. And sometimes we'll lose ourselves in discussing different things, because words mean different things for different people. And so that was a really nice shift, seeing that, and then I felt I was in the right direction.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Fiona, I was going to turn that question back on you. And what's the first question actually initially, but what's your sense of the utility of medication?
I've never prescribed medication because that's not in my power to do so.
Yeah.
And to be honest, it's an extreme last resort for me. I would prefer if people didn't take medication at all, including sleeping tablets. Because I believe when they learn to rest inside of themselves, they're going to sleep. So whatever it takes to teach them to learn to rest inside of themselves. But, you know, I'm not saying I'm right, and this is just my personal opinion and the way that I work. Yeah. And of course, there's been people where I've just been like, okay, you're on the middle of psychosis and you really need to go and see somebody that can diagnose you and give you what you need. Because I know I work for the NHS, I work for myself, and I live in Portugal, not in England anymore. So yeah, the reason why I look like this is I went to the beach and then I came back and jumped in the shower and jumped on the call. And it's also my meeting, sorry.
Oh, that's nice. I love the beach. But what's so interesting as well for me is like, before I was really attached to what I was thinking. And it's so nice to like, this is what I think now. Tomorrow I might say like you. I don't know. And it's so like nice to listen without knowing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because it's like, it's my world at the moment, but who knows how my world looks tomorrow. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, I loved as well just reading the Free Principles. I only came across them a year ago. And just that, you know, Sydney Banks described his theory in a psychological way. He described them with mental filters and perception, and all that checked out with science. And I love that because I was like, yeah, ethereal spirituality that agrees with science. And for me, that was it. I was like, okay, I can see that this is the truth because it brought together two of my loves in my life and made it a lot more authentic and easy for me to then share with other people because I see it as the truth. So thank you for your time.
And how has it changed your practice?
Sorry, I keep watching the times. I've got a client.
Oh yeah.
I'm gonna go. How's it changed my
in one sentence?
It's changed me. You know, there's no excuse to listen to my story. There's just no excuse to listen to the story that I tell myself. And I find the story, if I'm telling myself a story, I quite quickly find it hilarious now. And I hang out on the unknown a lot more when I'm with myself and when I'm with clients. And so I'm just happier. And obviously that has an effect on my clients and on my life and everyone in my life.
Thank you. Thank you for taking the time.
Thank you. No, it was a pleasure. It wasn't my choice to put her at 6:30. It was her choice. So
there'll be a recording. We are recording. Thank you, Fiona.
Thanks.
Does anyone else have anything like to come in with? And if not now, do feel free to come in at any point.
But it is very interesting in my world how much egos and how attached, like in the psychiatry world, how attached we are to different things, and how we fight with our big egos and that we really become blind and deaf. Not deaf. Deaf. Yeah. But it's all innocence.
Yeah.
Well, that's another thing. To the more I see that, the easier it is. Like, we're all doing our best.
Yeah. Viv, I think were you about to come in? I see you raising your hand there. Okay.
Did I? I didn't even know how I did that.
Yes.
Hi, Fredrik.
Hi, Viv.
Hi. I don't know what I've missed, so apologies if I'm asking you to repeat anything, but I'm quite fascinated about, because I haven't spoken to you probably for a couple of years since. How is this? How is this received amongst your peers? or are you just kind of going along and doing your own thing and getting whatever results you get, and it's different from what they're doing? Do you talk to your peers about what you're doing differently?
Do you mean my colleagues in psychiatry? Yeah. I did that in the beginning, but I realize I don't do it so much anymore. It seems that there's so much illusion of knowledge to get through, to hear something new, because it's so easy to listen and categorize, and that you get what you already know, and this is pointing in a completely different direction. So it seems like it is hard to get through to at least the psychiatrists. But that's just my story, and sometimes it's just that, and when I realize it's a story for myself, and then I start talking to them again, maybe it's something else. But that's the story I have at the moment.
Something that just occurred to me there, Fredrik, is that in the recovery world, which is one of my areas of special interest, if you like, I kind of struggled at first, because it seemed like there were two, there was a sort of before the principles, which is all about, as a recovering alcoholic, you have this flaw, as it were, that you have to work very hard to just be okay, and it's a lot of effort and so on, and then the principles is a completely different explanation of how we function, that we're not broken, that we're whole, and that we have access to unlimited resources. And I found it very difficult even to be in that company, because it seemed so negative, it seemed so wrong. And then at some point I had an insight into kind of how to find a place that where I could speak my truth, but in a way that was relevant, but it wasn't confrontational. And it's, I know that's a different thing, because the recovery world is not intellectual. It's a different kind of, psychological or psychospiritual. But, so in that context for me, I would talk about the still small voice within, and people would resonate with that, because the truth packs a punch. But I found ways, so I just ignored the bits where there was complete conflict and a different way of seeing the world. But I spoke authentically about the bits that were acceptable. But it was funny, because I didn't work it out, just suddenly I found that I had a language that was able to sort of bridge the gap, and there wasn't it wasn't a compromise, but it was and people resonated with that. They they liked that, and it was just an interesting how it came, and it's that clarity to that path for me opened up in its own time, as it were. It certainly wasn't down to me working it out or coming up with a formula or anything like that.
Yeah, I definitely haven't found the right path with the right words at my workplace.
Early days.
Yeah. And sometimes they ask what it is, and what's the name, and I said the 3 principles, and then they ask directly, what are they? And then I became this awkward person, want to define it in a good way. I have stories about this.
I bet all of us have been there.
Yeah.
And the other thing that strikes me is that each of us on this call, we're all at the forefront in our, whatever area it is that we know, or whatever community we're in, or however. I mean, even if we're not sharing it professionally, that sort of the principles needs our voices. That there's such a tiny number of people worldwide who've come across this, and that it's both a sort of a privilege and an opportunity, to and I think that the words do come, the right, and the right vehicles for each of us do come. And and I'm really touched and grateful that you being on this call is part of that, it seems to me. And
it's so helpful for me as well. And I haven't done this so many times before, and it's easy to have all these kinds of stories that, oh no, I don't know enough to be here, but then you're getting, like, you don't need to listen to these stories. Like, we have so many stories, like, and I've been wrong so many times before, so perhaps I'm wrong this time as well.
Well, I loved your insight about how we see it today is just how we see it today, and it's accompanied by the knowledge that is always evolving, that and I find that very comforting, that as soon as there's been one insight that the ripples start, and we don't get to control or predict how that will evolve or how it will ripple out, but it does seem to be the case that it happens.
Definitely. I've always had a story like I didn't know enough, and that felt so true, and I have so much like anxiety around I didn't know enough. But it's so nice to realize, like, the source is not coming from like an intellectual thing, it comes from something else. So it's so nice when you start to trust that, and I don't need to practice anything before anything of this, and I just need to trust a little bit.
Yeah. Do we have any other questions? It'd be lovely to hear from. I see that there's some people I don't know. I think maybe you do, Fredrik. It'd be lovely to hear from some of the other people on the call. Lisa?
I don't have a question as such. It's just a lot of what we've been talking about really resonates with me on a personal level and a professional level. I have had quite a problem with anxiety for the past couple of years, but prior to that I was working as an analytical hypnotherapist and was becoming increasingly frustrated by the fact that some of the techniques I was using weren't having the results that you were trained to think that they would have on people. And I used to think it was down to me. I used to think it was my fault, that I had done something wrong. And now I can actually see that it's not the right thing to do with people. To get them to go back through their past and dig through things that aren't necessary. To resurrect people's suffering, if you like, in a lot of ways. And I can actually see how that doesn't lead to a resolution for people. And I just wish and hope that one day lectures on the three principles will be part of the curriculum for training people in med school, people that are training to be nurses, psychologists, different fields like that. I think it would be amazing.
Where are you based, Lisa?
I'm in Ayrshire.
Oh, are you? Right. Not too far from me. I'm in Glasgow.
I'm down Ayrshire. Yeah, I'm down Ayrshire, quite near the coast. So yeah, I'm hoping to get back to doing some work again one day soon. But I don't know how I'm going to tackle that, given my new understanding, if you like. I still want to help people, but probably not in the same way as I was doing before. I haven't figured that out yet, but I'm sure it will come to me somewhere along the way.
Oh, good. Yeah. Well, another, someone else with a vocation in this field.
Yeah.
Mm. Well, thanks. Nice to meet you. Perhaps meet you in
Yes,
the
you
flesh.
too.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Mm-hmm.
Does that kind of analysis of the past figure in the work that you do? You're back to the day job, Fredrik. Is that something that's current in psychiatry in Sweden?
Like it's been such a big debate in psychology. Like, what's the right therapy? Is it CBT or is psychoanalysis or psychodynamics? And now at the moment, there are so many different psychotherapists, but we are more and more going in the direction that perhaps we shouldn't drag them through the past. Perhaps that's not a good idea. But before it was a bit different, that it's really important to dig everything up. But I think the field gets it more and more that it's not a good idea. So I think we are in the right direction a bit, yeah. It's interesting how it's so much emotions in the staff, like what's right and what's wrong, and we're so attached to our, like, this is the right thing and that's the wrong thing. And then people have all these years where they have learned different stuff, and sometimes now it's not as cool anymore to do this kind of therapy, and people get stressed, so will I lose my job? And that's not so good to have all this stress in this field.
Yeah, the I don't know what it's like in Sweden, but burnout and absenteeism for stress and anxiety are just massive problems in the health centre, the health service, not health centre, the health service here in the UK.
Yeah, here as well.
Mm.
Yeah, lots of anxiety and depression.
Yeah. Yes, and it's interesting to see some of the work that's coming through and with some of our colleagues on, that's got a health of the helper and resilience in the resilience in the caring professions. And I was just speaking to one of our colleagues before this called Joe Bailey, that's one of his areas of kind of special interest. But yeah, I imagine you've heard about his work at the Mayo Clinic and the massively improved outcomes there with after a few days training of physicians and other healthcare professionals there. Yeah.
Oh, that sounds good.
Yeah.
It's so needed. Yeah, we're a very stressed workforce.
Well, yeah. Yes, it's interesting. Is stressed even the right word? I mean, yeah. I'm not trying to. I'm bearing in mind that you're speaking in English, but it's how we innocently stress how we innocently stress ourselves and don't do that, and then but feel that feel like it's something that's happening to us, and and that was part of my story too, and it's such a relief when you begin to see that it doesn't have to be that way, that that there is another way to be, and that nothing outside of myself has the power to make me feel a certain way, except if I believe it does or I fall asleep to that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, what's going on for you in the three principles world at the moment? So you've got your kind of day job, and I think you said you do that 75% of the time. And how do you spend the other 25% of your time?
Like I want to play more music, so that's my second job, you could say. So I play the fiddle in Irish pubs. So I really want to do that more. So I arrange gigs around and play more.
Are you part of a band, or do you play?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm in a band. Play with a guitarist and a mandolin player.
Oh, excellent! And I think that's going to be part of our event in Spain as well. There's going to be some music there, entirely voluntary. Yeah.
Yeah, I hope there will be lots of music in Spain. That would be, it will definitely. And also it's I forgot the word. It's the biggest Irish. What's the name? Festival. The biggest Irish.
The Flad, or is that? Amanda would keep us right if she was here.
Yeah. I know that. What's the 17th of March? It's called.
St. Patrick's Day.
Yes.
Sorry.
St. Patrick's Day. That would be fun. We're gonna have a St. Patrick's Day there. Lots of music.
Good stuff. Good stuff. And are you involved in any other training at the moment in terms of the three principles, or?
No, I will be at the Viva event in November, I think. Yeah, in Albeer. Mm-hmm. And next week I will be in the Barnstaple with Deborah Simmons. Yes, conference there. Mm-hmm. So it's from from Thursday to Saturday, and I will be there and talk a little bit and play some music.
Excellent. Well, there's plenty of places that people can come and meet you.
Yeah.
Coming up over the next few months. What about in Sweden? What about in Sweden? Is there a kind of community or a movement?
There are some people, but it hasn't taken off. It seems like. But we are some people, like Ylva is here on this call, and there are some other people in Sweden, but not so many.
Mm-hmm. And are you in touch with them, or do you have any kind of meetup or space for connection? Sweden.
Ylva has done a lovely, she did a retreat with Steve Adair and Tony Fiedler.
Oh yeah.
So that was very nice. But it hasn't been so. Perhaps we can, ask Ylva if she has.
Yeah, it'd be lovely to hear. I don't know how. I mean, I'm not assuming that you speak English, and I'm, but.
I don't know of any things in Sweden at the moment, and I'm not. But there has been a couple. I know, Dicken Bettinger was here as well. It was a couple of years ago. So I think it's more in Norway at the moment, and some in Denmark, but it hasn't really started flying for us here. But hopefully soon.
Yeah. Ylva, I don't know. I don't want to put you on the spot because I'm conscious that we're speaking English, but we'd love to hear from you if you want to come in.
Yeah, hey.
Oh.
Hey, Ylva.
Hey.
Good to see you.
Yeah, good to see you again. Just at the moment, I have nothing planned in Gothenburg.
Nothing, no. But it was a lovely retreat you organized with Steve Adair and Tony Fiedler.
It was.
Yes, and you organized another one you had them there 2 times, right? Or 3?
I think 5 times.
5 times. Oh, right. Cool.
It has been a lot.
Ah, that's great. You're a great organizer.
Oh. And I would try to do something with Lisa when it's available.
Yeah, that sounds lovely. I want to come on that.
How did you get into it, Ylva?
It was the Viva event in Spain, the first Viva event.
And how did you find out about that? What took you to Spain?
It was my friend that was going. So actually, I was more going because my friends was joining. I didn't know anything about the principle. So, but it was really a turning point. And after that, I've been listening a lot on YouTube and into different events. Because I was very good at digging in the past.
Yeah.
I'm not so good at it now.
Oh, good. Good. Well, thank you so much for joining the call, and it's very nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
Thank you, Ylva.
Yeah, stay in touch. So I guess we're coming towards at the end of our time. Fredrik, maybe just hand it back to you to close.
Yeah, close it.
Yeah. Any last thoughts?
No, I love this this understanding, and I really love the community, and it's so powerful, and it's so much love in this community, and I really know I can use it more, or like even more connected to the community, because that really helps me. And it's such a resource to stay connected. And, so I really want to do that in the future.
Oh, cool. Well, thank you so much for joining us tonight and connecting with all of us. I really appreciate it, and it's been lovely to get to know you a bit better.